Well, you made it to the bench. Welcome to the Academy.
Welcome. We're so happy you're here.
We're going to explain a little bit about what actually did you just get into. What did you just commit yourself to? You know, the program or the Academy is 18 months long. And in the beginning, that might sound like just a huge commitment, but what would you pay or what would you do to have purpose for the rest of your life? So our motto here is actually to live with purpose. A couple of things are going to happen in your mind as you go through this transformation process. The first 6 weeks or the first 90 days, we're just your cheerleaders. We're here to cheer you on, just to keep you standing.
We're just so excited you're here.
Yeah, we are. You know, and actually, we used to be in that same position.
We were the first graduates. I mean, you may have already heard a little bit about our story, or maybe not, but we're going to play some of our story after you hear this little bit. So we're going to share a little bit more about us, but we were right where you are. That's why we started this place. So you are definitely not alone, and we totally know what you're feeling and going through. So we're just here to start encouraging you and telling you a little bit about it. Why do we call it an academy and not a program?
Well, the program has a stigma about it, that it's more like an institution, and the recidivism rates on the programs. You know, from our perspective, we didn't realize that they were doing it right, or we wouldn't even created Crossing the Jordan Academy.
Yeah.
And we wanted a place where people could come and actually...
It's like students of life, like excited students. You are enrolling in an experience
where your dreams become a reality.
Yes.
And the vision that you've had on your heart since you were a little kid, and if you think back for a second, what are some of the visions that you had when you were a little kid with no care in the world and you felt a calling? This is the place where those dreams become a reality.
Yeah, those dreams are still in there, right? Like
those dreams, you're going to have to work for them though.
Yeah.
You will be working for them. You know, people in the community, they hear different things about the Academy. You know, we do a lot of fun stuff. You know, it's work hard, it's play really hard.
Yeah, vacations. River trips. You're probably looking at some clips right now of those. Snow trips. We're all about creating new memories. And that's the exciting part. But you have some work to do, right? While you're here, every student has work to do. But
actually a lot of work.
There's a lot of work, not a little work. There's
a lot of work. I mean, you're going to earn every bit of this new life that you're going to get in. You're going to actually appreciate it. That's how you keep it. You know, when things are given to people, they don't really keep it. They don't appreciate it. I mean, so you're going to earn it. But the cool thing is you're not alone. So you just came from an area in life where there's 8 billion people on the planet, and I know how you're feeling. That feeling of being surrounded by people, but being alone. Maybe nobody could empathize with what you're going through.
Alone in a room full of people.
Alone in a room full of people. Family, maybe disappointed in you, maybe abused, all kinds of different situations. Hopelessness. Drowning feelings of hopelessness. And, you know, over the last decade, we've got a chance to work with hundreds and hundreds of people, just like you. And walk through some cases where even family actually thought that they were a hopeless case.
Lost their kids,
multiple children.
Many times over, and we've seen so much reunification here.
We've seen fathers become fathers again, mothers become mothers again, where there was no hope. We've seen people that were on the brink of suicide actually make that last breath to choose life and came here and made it to the bench right where you're at.
Living out their dreams now.
You can take a look around. You're going to see some of the staff around here. And believe it or not, they're graduates. And they were once in that seat that you're in right now. And you know, we have trainings. You're going to hear about some trainings that we do. One of my favorite training is called the Intrepid Training. You're going to go through that probably in about 9 months. We're going to get you to a point where you're going to be able to neurologically learn a little bit about yourself and what you actually want and how to articulate what you want, and that you can go after whatever you want. Yeah, and get it.
You know? And that 4-day experience is like life-altering. That's
an understatement.
You know, hopefully we're playing a role right now of some of those highlights, but to throw it on a video is not at all possible to show you the excitement and actually the results for your life for the rest of your life. What are some other amazing things? I mean,
well, there's work experience. So you're going to have work experience. We're going to put you in a bunch of different kinds of industries, maybe some industries that maybe you never thought of that this job would be well for you. So we have all those different opportunities, and we're constantly in the creation mindset of creating new industries for the opportunity so that you possibly could be leading an industry, teaching other people that come through the academy later on. So those options are there for you also.
Unity, family events.
Family events.
Tribe and Triumph, and just an entire family experience. And what I notice is often we come in, this was true for us as well, is that we didn't even know how to be a good friend. We didn't know how to be a good sister or a brother, or be in those family environments. Christmas and Thanksgiving is extraordinary around here.
Well, we put Clark Griswold to shame during Christmas. Christmas is something that
magical
it is magical
for the kids.
For the adults.
Yeah.
And for the adults, the men that get to play Santa Claus and things like that. So anyways,
Santa Claus is real.
Santa Claus is real, especially here at Crossing the Jordan.
Yeah.
And if you can think it, believe, you will end up jumping out of an airplane. You will go hiking. You will do all of those. You'll swim in the ocean. You're going to do all of those things that you've seen other people do in movies. You're going to stop watching your life go by vicariously through other people, and you're actually going to be your own superhero.
And what I've noticed, especially recently, when we talk to somebody on the bench that you are sitting on, they say it seems too good to be true.
It does.
It does. And, from your perspective right now, we may be sounding like we're saying crazy stuff. And the amazing part is that there are plenty of witnesses around here and a ton of testimonies that will be evidence of what we say is true. But it's so exciting to sit here today and say, fitness and all these other pieces that we've desired to add in to the academy are now here, and you're really arriving at the best time.
You are. When you think about the body that you want, things like that. And so it being too good to be true. So Dana and I have been through multiple institutions over the past decade or a couple decades and things like that. And so what we did collectively is we created an experience of all of those things that didn't have that we wish that they did have. So, and we actually sat down and we're like, how could we create the ultimate experience that would create life and purpose and everything like that?
Not death.
And we actually sat down and we dreamed the impossible dream and took that next step forward. And then we realized that we looked to our right and left, and there was a couple other people walking with us. And then there was a couple other people walking with us. And then soon we became a tribe. Welcome to the tribe.
We're so glad you're here. You got this. You can do it.
You can do it. Okay, tell them to keep it down out there. We're filming.
Are you rolling again?
Yeah.
I'm rolling.
Okay, good. Because this is catching me.
This is Crossing the Jordan. Behind the scenes. This is how we really are.
This is how we really are.
This is how we roll.
Michael Bryant.
Question 1. Shoot.
How did you meet?
Craigslist. We met on Craigslist. I was looking for a lady,
and but we're gonna actually answer. So after,
I'm gonna answer here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was Craigslist that we met. I was looking for men seeking women, and there she was.
No.
Actually, washer and dryer.
We didn't meet on Craigslist. I was selling my dryer.
And my buddy bought it.
Yeah, and I couldn't lift it, which isn't like me. But anyway.
Well, he asked for help. He asked me for help.
And then the man of my dreams
showed up.
Knight in
shining armor. Yeah, it was a work truck.
Oh, you did have a white work truck.
Yep.
So it was a white horse shining. Anyway, and then you said, oh, "That's so cute."
Well, so there was something about her eyes. Your eyes. Yeah. So I looked in her eyes, and I got I stopped for a minute and I looked, and it was kind of corny, but it was true. So you can say actually corny stuff. If it comes from your heart, then it's good. So I said, the eyes are the window to the soul. And if you know what to look for, you actually, if you know what to look for, or if you know what you're looking for, you can see through your soul. I said something like that, and I said, man, and I really like what I see. But then she says, I go like this. I said, I want to put you on the spot, so here's my phone number. And she goes, well,
You have to
yeah, I
tell
do.
the
This is, yeah. And she says, well, I'm kind of old fashioned. Here's my phone number. And I said, okay. And I didn't call her. And 4 days later,
You have to tell
4 days later, she called me, and I said, well, there goes old fashioned out the window.
Yes, you took too long. You were a day past protocol.
I was a day past protocol.
And
Yeah,
I
there is
know
a
who
protocol.
I am,
Yeah.
So I made the call because my white knight in shining armor pulled up, and I was really into your construction boots at the time. Yeah.
Concrete.
Concrete,
Yeah.
mason, best there is. So, so that's where it all began. And then moving forward, we just fell in love. We actually went to the same high school.
We did.
We did.
But I was the dork. I was the band nerd.
You're the band nerd.
I was the invisible kid.
I was the cheerleader, the loudmouth.
You wouldn't have paid attention to me. She wouldn't have paid attention. She wouldn't have even noticed me.
I'm sure glad, because we went to our high school reunion, and boy, was I happy I chose him because, band nerds rule. But anyway, yeah.
They do. They grow up and rule.
So we were paralleling our lives. We had some of the same friends.
Yeah, we didn't know each other. And well, to be honest, I can't even remember any of my friends' names. I was like,
We were pretty out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our
not drugs. I wasn't doing drugs in high school. I was going to school, going home.
And I'm still friends with the friends from high school. So we were living this parallel life, and then we got hooked on drugs, which will be in our full disclosure. Not together. We get in trouble.
Not together.
Not together. And then we go to prison. Not funny. Not together. And then kind of the cool thing is that, well, first this all birthed from that. But the other cool thing is we were actually baptized in separate prisons.
We did. Well,
at the same month of the same year.
We looked for a new way of life because obviously, the evidence would suggest that the old way of life wasn't really fulfilling our needs or working.
Clearly.
At that time.
That's an understatement.
We did learn a lot, though.
We did learn a lot.
But we went on a new path with a new life.
But the point is that we were like paralleling this whole time, even in our new life, desire. And so, fast forward, we meet, we date. In fact, we high-fived. I mean, talk about dorks. We high-fived in the parking lot.
My favorite president.
As our favorite president.
I don't know why we asked each other on the first date what the favorite president was. That's it's not a first date question.
No, but it clearly meant that we were meant to be together because it's a rarity.
By the way.
Yeah, by the way, for all of you that might be offended, we love him. One thing we just have so much in common.
Well, no, I've actually been an entrepreneur
from
since
birth.
I was
Me too.
It would seem like that, but actually from young teens or preteens, I had these
crazy ideas.
My grandfather supported one of my business decisions at the age of 12.
I know.
And I look back, it never would have worked, but he still helped me.
Yeah, I was still a door-to-door salesman. I think at 8 years old or something.
Yeah,
so
the soonest I was door-to-door was 12, so a little bit ahead of me.
Oh, good.
You're older than me, though.
Oh, yes, another one.
She's older than me.
Yes, national news. Yes. Anyway, not by much. So yes, we had that same drive to succeed, same mindset, yet we lost our way. Okay, so in my story, I really was given a vision for crossing the Jordan, and when I met Michael, that had been a dream for, at that time, a decade, 10 years. And, I had been seeking it and then getting, discouraged, and I was on a roller coaster around it by the time I met him, and something amazing happened because I'd kind of been laughed at that I would have such a big dream, right?
Not by me.
And then you came along and were the first person to not laugh about it, to believe in it and partner with me. And one thing I remember is from day one, you created curiosity. And I look back and I can remember that you were intentional about bringing that desire alive again, fanning the flames of it. I don't know that I knew that in that moment.
I don't know if I knew that either. Just I'd failed at so many things, and your idea sounded like it might work, so I needed a win.
I could see that, yeah. But it was really deeper than that. Like, and so what happened is
it was a purpose. It was the first idea I think that we had that we could attach ourselves to. That was something that wasn't about us. It wasn't about our success, and it was something bigger than us.
Yeah.
And one of the things is we didn't try to start out by being this big, glamorous, successful
No, we didn't
thing.
build the roof. I mean, we built the foundation, which we usually we're trying to build roofs.
With the roof, yeah. We tell people, hey, you're trying to start a building, don't start with the roof.
Yeah, so the foundation was that, and then we kind of got known. I mean, we could be here for hours, but we got known for taking some women into our house, and
that's how it started.
Yeah, and so the calls kept coming, and we were having quite a few people living in our homes.
Well, even our mentors, because if you think about it, so we have 2 just above toddlers living on our house, but we have this calling on our heart, because it was more than just a vision at that time.
Yeah.
It was a calling, it was a yearning. So we're bringing in ladies as prostitutes into our house, and they're actually detoxing from heroin.
And our daughter's room.
We have our little kids
Don't
there,
judge.
and our mentors are like, hey, what are you doing? And we're just like,
and our kids were so amazing. They got to serve. That was a part of their calling.
It wasn't out of the ordinary.
Yeah, they were like very blessed to be able to do that, which, we kind of got judged for it, and then it turned
Not by
into
everybody, but
by some.
People. They just
and
thought
then
we were crazy.
yeah, we just didn't care.
But some people thought, they're like, wow, that's cool. I wouldn't want to do that, but that's good for them.
Yeah. But then what happened is it was getting a little out of control, the requests, and we knew in that moment it was time to start crossing the Jordan.
Well, no, actually, what really happened was we were taking these ladies because they'd only stay with us for a week, 2 weeks until we found a place for them. But it was in another community that we were taking these ladies, and our heart was like, hey, these ladies in our community, and our community should be cleaning up its own mess.
Yeah.
And so when we saw a need that wasn't there, we're like, okay, let's fill the need. So it was an invitation to actually come up with a solution.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the birthing of the dream that I had shared with you from our first date on, and so then we had a first festival. We don't want to talk about that too much. We got our butt kicked, and that's an understatement. So, but because we had such a strong alliance, I remember when you looked at me and said, "Man, if we got our energy together, if we understood our power together and aligned it,
the power of agreement,
what could be accomplished?" And I think by then we sort of understood that was what was occurring. And so,
well, no, we understood that, but I think even in the process, because it's like it wasn't easy.
No,
it wasn't easy by any means, and we underestimated some of the challenges, but we were all in, so there was like no turning back. So even in the midst of those challenges, there was no other way to go except for forward.
Well, and then we started putting door knockers on doors. With our children.
Early in the morning.
At 6 a.m. every morning, or every one morning a week, and then we would go pick up. And we had little notes that said,
fill a bag,
fill a need, but it was for a store we didn't have yet, for a home we were dreaming for. Yeah. And all our kids were involved, and just a really quick story is that I was losing hope.
No, so listen, here's the first time. So we put all the door knockers on a Saturday morning, and really early, and it said, we'll put this stuff on the sidewalk and we'll pick it up on a Monday. And so that Monday, right before I turned the corner, we were in our truck with the kids, and to be honest, what I'm thinking in my heart is like, oh my goodness, how do I console my wife when this street is empty? And so I'm just figuring on how to ease the tears and stuff like that. Yeah. How do I ease the tears when but then we turned the corner.
Oh my gosh.
The whole street, both sides, had all of the bags. And I'm choked up for a minute. She's crying. The kids are like, oh, what's going on? Because they're really young. They don't understand. And the truck that we had wasn't big enough to carry all the stuff. So we had to make multiple trips to our house. We're taking everything back to our house.
I always think about it's as if, God knocked on all their hearts, and all those people got together just to show us, like,
Well, it was a kiss. It was a kiss from the divine to actually let us know that we were in fact on the right track, on the right road.
And everything really followed from there. I started with a recession and I started calling all these stores and like, can we have a store for free? And they're like, what? And then people started saying yes.
Somebody said yes. Well, I had $500, so it wasn't for free. But I mean,
That's
imagine
nothing.
getting a retail store with $500.
6,000 square feet it was for $500.
Yeah.
So that's near free. We opened in 14 days.
14 days from the time I gave them the $500.
And we used to make $50 a day in the store, and we have no idea to this day how we fed ourselves other than a miracle. Yeah. We literally were like rolling pennies.
When we came home that there was actually boxes of food on our doorstep.
At Christmas, at Christmas we were so broke and too prideful to tell everybody because we had quit our jobs and
we walked away from our careers.
Yeah, and we were making decent money and we walked away and and I came and there was Christmas presents on the front door and we don't know who did it. We know how, but we didn't know who. And then it all started from there, right? Wow. I mean, what?
That's when the hard times started.
Yes, pushing an 18-wheeler is the way we describe it, with our fingertips for years. But many 3 a.m.
a lot of sleepless nights, tears, wondering if we made the right decision.
And then the first store and women started coming in. And it was like there was this beautiful love radiating and there was this traction that people used to call it, and light in the darkness down there on the bad part of town. And then we just started loving people. Not to say that we knew what we were doing.
We had no idea what we were doing.
All the training just kind of came from what, our love for each other first, our love for them. Kids started coming in. And really what we discovered is that we would wake up in the middle of the night like two little kids and go, oh, that's why we had to go to prison. This is what we learned here, right? The prison cell was our training and God was our instructor.
Well, so many years in a cell, you have books and stuff like that, and so you just read what you have. And
we were determined in there to change our lives, so we did the work in there, and we did alone in a cell being trained by God.
Wouldn't want to do it again, but it was the best education.
It is. Don't do it. There are other ways.
Just come to Crossing the Jordan. We'll teach
Just
you.
come to Crossing the Jordan. We'll teach you.
Putting our marriage first isn't something that we intentionally did in the beginning,
so we almost killed each other.
Well, yeah, because I think that we learned that. I mean, we heard it from our mentors and stuff, but I don't think we heard it.
No.
And because it was like, no, I got to do this. We got to do this. Getting up at 4 a.m. working till midnight. Pushing and those things needed.
Me throwing things, losing my mind. I wasn't very mature.
Being that tired produced some friction in the marriage that I think that wisdom could have made that friction not be there.
Yeah.
So now by putting our marriage, like intentional date nights, and spontaneity. So I'll still come and tell you, like I'll text her.
She'll text saying, I can tell you're losing your mind. I'm taking you away.
Well, I don't start to text like that.
No, but
it's just like, hey, we be at the house in 20 minutes. We're going out, and I won't tell her.
There's my knight in shining armor. Yes.
Well, yeah, I think that men still need to do that with ladies, even if they're married for 10, 15, 20 years, is because
absolutely.
That's the
it's
romance.
A must at Crossing the Jordan Academy. Spontaneity and chivalry.
Chivalry.
It's a must. We teach classes on it. How did we learn how to run a social enterprise that is a multi-million-dollar social enterprise?
Google and YouTube.
Google.
YouTube is a really good. YouTube, I think, is
all night long.
Well, YouTube, I think, is like better than college because college has all the prerequisites, and YouTube, you can just get to the point and then try it and
absolutely.
Come back and do it again.
So we're like, how do you do this? I don't know. Google it. How do you run a store? Google it. I'm serious. That's pretty cool. That might inspire some people.
Well, the brochures and stuff.
Oh gosh, they were horrific.
We're like, how do you make a design in Word and email it or make a PDF? And it was there. So
thank God we have a better team now.
It took us like 4 hours to build a design.
4 hours to build a square.
To build a design.
To figure
and we had a desk in our living room.
Yeah. And that first, it was in our bedroom first. And then we moved to the garage. We were moving up.
We moved up in the world and we created an office in the garage.
And our dream, and we had a party with our blue plane.
Came to that party.
Oh God. But we had a dream, which we're in the studio of that 22,000 square foot building, right? And we had a dream that we would have opposites on the opposite side so that we didn't kill each other.
So when I told her, I said, listen, someday we're going to get the big office building. We're going to do it. And my office is going to be the opposite end from your office end.
And,
you
right?
can't get farther apart in offices in this building.
No, we are the furthest apart. Therefore, we have a happy marriage. I can hear you coughing. Anyway, we discovered that we could not do this alone. Big epiphany. So it just, meaning slowly, we started to find people that believed in the mindset that we believe in.
Well, that they wanted to be attached to something bigger than themselves. And I think the true freedom came in training the trainers.
Yes.
And then they train trainers and it's a domino effect. Instead of just teaching people, hey, this is how you get off of drugs, this is how you live a better life. When you actually train somebody to instruct somebody else to do that, then an exponential growth of human freedom actually happens at that moment. And the energy is
well, that's what happened to us. We trained them.
As soon as we started teaching, freedom happened.
Yes, we stopped focusing on our problems. A big epiphany.
We've slowed down. Okay. So 7 years ago, we would go 100 miles an hour with our hair on fire.
Yeah.
That people, so our mentors would say, hey, slow down. The hare and the turtle, or the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
The tortoise wins every time. And we're like, they just don't understand what
we're not tortoises, damn it.
Well,
we were rabbits.
Turned into tortoises.
And we are now tortoises happily.
And we just gave that advice to our daughter the other night. We're just like, slow down.
You'll get there faster. That's my motto. Don't take my motto.
No,
that's my motto. What's the motto with you?
You didn't come up with it.
I did. It was from heaven.
Get mentors.
No, listen. Slow down.
CEOs love to teach too.
Slow down. You'll get there faster.
Well, that's on the back of all of our shirts too.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. So think about that when you say like whatever it takes. That encompasses everything.
Yeah, and I think that it's sort of a lost art form in our culture today. Like, you hit a roadblock, and I mean, there's amazing people doing great things. Well, be uncomfortable too. Be willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of somebody else, or be willing to be uncomfortable for even if a long period of time for the purpose of a win, of a success, or something new. And I think one of my greatest moments with you is I was hysterical on the porch, and you were quite adorable leaning against the door frame, and you told me this is when most people quit. This is when in this moment right now is when most people quit. And honestly, I don't know that I had any negative energy after that.
More to myself.
Well, it changed my life because we just said, wow, this is what it feels like to give up. We became aware of it, and then it was on after that. It was all in, game
on. Point of no return, and that's living.
Whatever
that
it
is
takes.
Living. Well, whatever it takes, and living a life that really is all in. When you're all in.
And we didn't really understand that those behavioral moments were the actual foundation of the trainings that we have established.
I was just going to say that those are the culmination points of the classes.
Because what we actually experienced in the building of the academy were hundreds of people are going through that, basically our own challenges.
Well, the thing is it's also easier to encourage somebody
when you've been there.
Yeah, because so now we have authority and experience from the pits that they're in, instead of, we read this in a book and this is what the book says. No, we've been to hell. We've been to the bottom portions of hell. We know what it looks like. We got the T-shirt. Let's go.
Yes, and they want out of hell.
They do.
Therefore, they come. One thing I notice is that we both, specifically me, I'm not so sure you were really into being in prison, but the tribe, you didn't want to be there. But
you did?
I didn't want to be there, but I did know that I was no longer alone when I was there, and I had built a tribe there in prison.
I was still alone.
You were still alone. By the time my end was there, at the end there, I had built a tribe. And then when I came home, I realized so many things that we could talk about. But one is the longing for a community that you're with all the time, not just one meeting and stuff.
Well, you're not the only one that had that longing, because, I mean, I don't want to say, you had it and I had it. We got a lot in common. I think that's at the heart of every person.
Yeah. That's what my point is. And so what is it like to lead such a large tribe today? It is so amazing because it is they were longing, but everybody's longing for it. It's just hard to find at a deep level. So what a privilege to lead a tribe of extraordinarily talented people that are headed in the same direction, right?
Yeah, and this form of leadership isn't like being in front of the pack and saying, hey, this is where we're going.
No.
This kind of leadership is like leading from within. So
yeah.
it's like
we're arm to arm connected. Yeah, it's
a different kind of leadership than the world talks about.
But I think and I believe, well, we know at this point, that's what most people are longing for, and that's where addiction and everything is kind of birthed out of. The desire to be in a tribe together, moving forward and doing life together. Yeah.
We might even hear that in kids, when we're children, in books and stuff like that, like the little engine that could and things like that. But the truth is yeah, the truth is it is true. And when you think about it, when you do believe something, something
you
happens.
can achieve. We just set our target, and we hit that mother.
We set the targets.
I didn't swear.
It's okay.
Anyway,
it's okay if you do.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting to believe and achieve, and then watch other people in our tribe just hit their targets.
And encourage their believing. So if you doubt for a second, it doesn't matter if it's not like, oh, you're not believing in anything, because that happens. There's those times where we second guess. We're like, oh crap, am I going in the right direction? And I think that those questions are important because they help you analyze your surroundings and go, yeah, that's my target. That's where we're going.
And aligning. Really what it is having an alliance of people that are cheering you on and that will carry you in the hard times. So that's what we do here at the Academy.
So I tell Dana quite a bit. Because like even in marriage and stuff like that, maybe she might go, hey, you're not spending enough time with me. I need FaceTime and stuff like that. And she goes, are you okay? And I'm like, hey, take a look around. This is the birth of my passion for you. When you and I actually came together, Crossing the Jordan was born as a result of the love and passion, actually storybook passion, that two people had for each other.
Yeah.
And
happily ever afters are possible. Boom, boom,
well,
boom.
not only are they possible, they actually still happen.
They still happen.
And they happen for our graduates too.
They happen all the time. Many people living out their happily ever after. So that's our story. Happily ever after.
That's it.
It's our story. I'm sticking to it.
Right before I came to Crossing the Jordan, I wanted to die. And I grew up a Catholic and I didn't believe in suicide, but I made a deal with God. If I didn't get my life together and do something, I was gonna put a bullet in my brain. Well, I mean, I started using drugs when I was a kid, but like the last 2 years, I'm just telling you guys because I didn't know, you know what I mean? So. I started using drugs when I was young. The first time I drank and smoked weed, I was going out of 8th grade. But it was really it was the 2 years when I started slamming heroin that things were bad. I'd been molested my whole life, sexually assaulted, I'd been raped. But the abusive relationship with my kid's dad, that's really what brought me to the point of no return. Right before I came to Crossing the Jordan, I wanted to die. And I grew up a Catholic and I didn't believe in suicide, but I made a deal with God. If I didn't get my life together and do something, I was gonna put a bullet in my brain. I didn't have my kids. I hadn't seen them in almost 9 months. My kid's dad had tried to kill me again. He stabbed me 6 times. I had no contact with my family. And I had been awake for eight days, and I was in this prostitute's house. She was crazy. I was planning on robbing her, and instead I nodded out. I woke up in the morning and she had a butcher knife in her hand, and she was talking to invisible people how she was gonna go slaughter her neighbors who were snake charmers. And God gave me such a clear picture of this is exactly what my life was gonna be if I didn't do something immediately. And in that moment I called my uncle and he picked me up. I used everything to numb the pain. I was really strung out on heroin. I slammed it every day, smoked meth, smoked Marijuana, popped pills, 3 packs of cigarettes, anything I could get my hands on. Anything I could get my hands on. So I never felt safe as a child growing up. I never felt protected. I always was scared and I couldn't figure out why. And when I was 16, I met my kid's dad. He was 22. He had just got out of jail. He had a strike. I thought he was a badass. And in my naive sense of reality, I thought that that meant he could protect me. And getting with him was the biggest mistake of my life. And he in turn hurt me more than I've ever been hurt. And I used drugs to escape the current reality I was in with him and all the abuse that I endured because of the relationship I had with him. It destroyed my family. So I have always been a single mom. My son Jason is 17. My daughter Emily will be 16 in a few months. And it was always just the kids and I. Her dad has always been in and out of jail or prison or using drugs and has never been there. So I literally was all the kids had. And when I got really strung out on drugs, I couldn't take care of them and I was selfish. And in my head, I felt that by asking my parents to take care of them, I was doing my children a favor. And so they were living with my parents. My parents had totally cut me off, no contact with them, no phone calls, no relationship, nothing. And I hadn't seen my kids in almost 9 months and it was devastating them. Since coming to the Academy, I've learned about myself. The biggest thing is that I'm worth it. I've learned how important it is to have a community of people around you and a tribe that can celebrate with you, suffer with you, encourage you, and run the race of life with you. I've learned how important it is to be a mom, to show up and suit up every day, how to presence myself in a way that impacts others, and how to serve other people and get outside of myself. I feel my work ethic is amazing. In 6 days, it will have been 6 years since I've come to Crossing the Jordan, and I've literally only called in sick to work 1 time in 6 years. My relationship with my family and children is more amazing than I could have ever imagined. My kids and I connect on such a different level, I didn't even think it was possible. My family trusts me now. They allow me in their house. They invite me to do things. We vacation together. We have dinner together. We have a great time. The vision that I have for my life, I'm currently walking out. To serve my community in a way that keeps me grounded and humble. I'm enrolling in school in September and I'm going to start the paralegal program. Ever since I was 10 years old, I've wanted to be a lawyer and I'm finally taking the steps necessary to enter into the law field. I want to get married, I want to have 2 more kids, and I want to be able to work at Crossing the Jordan and serve everyone here every day in transformation of their lives. I'm so fucking excited for my future. My name is Christy McDonald, and this is my full disclosure.
I put my family in a tough spot. I started doing drugs. I started stealing from the house. I started taking whatever I wanted. Whenever I wanted, I came in. I was just selfish, and it affected everybody around me. My childhood. As a kid, I was a happy kid, pretty blessed. I just loved getting in trouble. Everything's going right, I go look something. Fuck up, basically. Yeah, and I love to fight. Growing up in the islands, Fiji Islands, you had to prove something. to your peers that you're a man, and basically I fought every day. I grew to get in trouble, fight, get in trouble. That's the solution, fight. It taught me how to be strong. And yeah, learned a lot about fighting. That was my solution to every question. Fight. Something went wrong. Oh yeah, you don't like it? Well, do something about it. And if I couldn't fight, I would go look for something to do to fucking fuck up or break, or that's the way I expressed anger, a lot of my feelings. Well, I started numbing out at the age of 11. Started off with back in Fiji, we had alcohol, but we youngsters, we wasn't making any money, so ain't nobody went to work, so we made homemade brew, and we had to get yeast and sugar, boil hot water, let it sit. It'll take 4 or 5 days to brew, and we started on Monday, let it brew through the week, bring it out on Friday or Saturday night if something's going on. We'll get fucked up and go into town. That's where I started numbing out. Right before I came here to the academy to cross the Jordan, I was looking at an 8 years prison sentence. I was nervous. I didn't know what, this is my first program. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Just had a lot of questions going through my head, like what the fuck? What's it gonna be like? Before I came here, this was a way out of going to prison for me. Like numbing out, how did the stuff I did to go to prison affect my family and kids? It affected my family and kids. I put my family in a tough spot. I started doing drugs. I started stealing from the house. I started taking whatever I wanted. Whenever I wanted, I came in. I just, I didn't care what my action would do, who it would affect. I was just selfish, and it affected everybody around me. When I was getting sentenced, the DA dropped my prison sentence down to 5 years, and I told my lawyer I was going to take it. I had taken the deal, and the day I was going to get sentenced, I walked into court, and there was some new findings, and the judge looked at me. They found out I was a veteran, and told me if I got accepted to a program, they would send me to a program. So I go back to my cell that night. I sat down, and a guy that just left the program was there. I told him the situation I was in, and he told me, call Crossing the Jordan. And I wrote Crossing the Jordan, called Michael Bryan. He said, be there next sport day. But Christy, the program manager, sent me a acceptance letter. I showed it to the judge. She suspended 8 years and sent me here. I've learned a lot about myself here at Crossing the Jordan. I learned that it's not that I've been all my life. I had to prove something to somebody. I had to please somebody, and the truth is, I was just afraid to fail. I was scared of failure. And every time I succeed in doing something, fuck up comes right after it. And I learned that it's okay to fail. Take failure as a lesson and pick up and drive on. My work ethic coming across the Jordan is I love to work. I work hard. That's all we do here is go hard. If you can't handle working hard, you won't get through this program. You won't succeed here. And the honest truth about it is you can't work hard here, you can't work hard out there. My relationship with my family now is it's great. I'm still working on it, but so far I'm still mending relationships with my parents, with my son's mom, with my daughter, and it's getting better and better every day with time. This tribe, my tribe here crossing the Jordan, is important to me because this is exactly what I needed all my life. The support I get here is I can't put it into words. We have a great tribe here. I can't put it into words how much I appreciate being a part of this tribe. How I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to come here. My vision for my future is it's still in works. Day to day I come across stuff and I want to do this, I want to do that. Right now I'm going to school, trying to get back into computers. I'm trying to be a computer system technician. Going to school for it right now, taking a couple classes for it. But my vision for my life is I want a family. I want to take care of my kids. I have faith in Wilson, Faith 7. It's getting bigger and bigger every day in Wilson. It's 2.5 and they're great kids. I just want to step back into their lives and be a dad and just be a part of their lives.
My name is Jeremiah Ngasawai, and this is my full disclosure.
Hi, I'm Sarah Grieve, and I'm the Chief Academy Officer at Crossing the Jordan, and I've been with Crossing the Jordan for 4 years. So what drew me to Crossing the Jordan was community, really. I knew someone that worked at Crossing the Jordan, and I actually, she was just an acquaintance, but someone that I knew within the community. And she's the one that said, I think you would be the greatest asset to Crossing the Jordan. You need to meet Michael and Dana. And I didn't think anything much of it because I was running my organization called Optimally Quest. And so, but anyway, she kept pushing for it. And she brought me in to meet Michael and Dana. And so little did I know that my prayers were actually being answered. And I had no idea the wild adventure I was about to start. It was definitely a whole new world for me. I never believed addiction was a disease. I thought that was bull crap. And but then when I got there and I see this gigantic sign that says addiction's not a disease, and I'm like, finally, some people who understand, So yeah, it was a perfect collaboration. Well, the biggest difference for me here at Crossing the Jordan is that the community that I've always longed to have, as far as a community where we're walking out rewiring of the brain and changing our conversation. I want to say transforming because that's my favorite word, but it's even bigger than that. It's getting in there and actually having a group of people that are committed to living outside of a death cycle or the drift or a mediocre life, and really having people that engage, from being fit to being healthy to going after their wildest dreams, and to have a whole community of people going after it. That's just amazing to me, and that's a new experience for me because I've worked in different environments where it would be, small groups of people or, but it hasn't ever been like an entire group of people on fire and on mission, and especially a group of people that were just in a cycle of death, caught up in some addictive pattern, be it prostitution, drugs, alcohol, depression, whatever. So it's very cool. I desire to live an abundant life. I desire to live a life like I call it the life force, to live in a force that's full of life and vibrancy and abundance and positive energy. And I like that. I want to live in that. And not that my family wasn't a good family. My dad he's a good man, and my mom is a great woman. She just got caught up in this death cycle, and it wasn't even about alcohol really for her. It was something that she hadn't quite right in herself, and she kept searching for something, and she got caught up in this cycle of addiction, and then as a result of that, that really brought a lot of scarcity and poverty and heartache into our family life, and with my sister Lori and my brother Todd and my sister Heather, and so I here we actually have an opportunity to walk the talk, to anything I ask anyone to do here, the training material, our curriculum, I've done it, I still do it, and I still live it. Because I want that life. I want the life that's produced by having, a committed strategy and a purpose, and a clear purpose, a clear action plan. Yeah, once someone walks in this door, I literally picture them walking out of a vicious cycle of something that was trying to kill them, lead them to death, and now they're into this this powerful force of love and positivity that could actually redirect the entire course of their life into a life force that they get to experience their wildest dreams and even get alive and awake to them again. Because most of the time our students, when they come here, when they get into the door, they've lost sight of what their burning desires are. I love that, that's a lot of what, why I believe addiction is not a disease, and it's all about choice. But, although, I think it does take community. you know, to invite someone into a new choice, because if we're just spinning around the same conversation, our own negatives, you know, cycles and same environment, and there's nothing new to break in there, you know, it just, and it's so easy to continue to make those same death choices over and over. So that's why I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful you're here, that, you know, you had that opening,
Huge.
you know, to change course.
Oh, it was divine.
Yeah.
It's God, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm
It
here.
to me, because if it was, I'd still be doing the same thing.
Yeah, me too. I don't even know where I would be without crossing the Jordan. I don't really want to know. So I don't spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, and there's no place I would rather be than here. And it's not crossing the Jordan, it's the people.
Because there's a lot of places that have opportunities that are like this, but it's not the same.
I know, I've thought about that. You know, one of the ways I noticed that the world approaches addiction is that they make the people who are in addiction bad people. And I have to say, my mom was not a bad person. She was actually a beautiful woman, and she was a nurse. She loved her patients. She loved elderly people. And I think it's one of the things about her that kept her from like being taken out real early, because she was, you know, so into her addiction that at one point that, you know, she almost died many times, and yet she so loved being a nurse that she kept going back to work. And I think that's the thing that gave her is, you know, she died a few years ago, and that passion of her to love people is the one thing that kept pulling her out of her addiction again and again. So she wasn't a bad person, but that's my point. Like, the culture makes people, you know, like dirt bags and all these names I've heard, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to talk like that about people, and people are just caught up in a cycle, and they don't quite know their way out. I've been a trainer for 20 years, and even before I was a trainer, I got, like, literally, you want to talk about being addicted to something, like, when I discovered that it was actually possible not to be my past or live the identity of my past, and that I had the power to reinvent myself, reinvent stories, change my way of being, you know, find different direction and purpose for my life, that kind of thing. Like, I got on fire for it. But even before that, I loved, you know, I started out with Mary Kay Cosmetics, and to me, I was so excited about, you know, even transforming my own image or someone else's image. So it's been a passion for me for a long time, and working with people on teams, and yeah, so I've devoted my life to it, and I plan on staying on that path. Well, I work with the students even in my dreams. Every night I'm dreaming about our students, and I wake up thinking about our students, and I'm madly in love with every one of our students. And even right from the interview chair, you know, there's just always something about someone that I'm like, okay, I see this value in this person. And so right from the get-go, I'm just excited about the possibilities for them, because I know that here at Crossing the Jordan, we've developed a system and a strategy that works to you know, pull people out of the addictive cycle, the death cycle, and into a life cycle or a life force. And I know it works. So for me, every day I'm excited to work with our students. I can't wait to get to work. If you read my journal, they're all over my journal. They're just a part of my life.
You know, you know, these students are in your journal. They're doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's positive effects everywhere. That's got to go along also to your family as well, right?
Well, I think, you know, it's a combination. At first, like I would say my brother and my two sisters, Todd and Heather and Lori, and my dad, his name's Sam, and I don't think they fully totally understand what I do, because I live over here in California and they live on the other side, you know, of the country. But with them, I think they're like, wow, I think Sarah's up to something that's really cool. But I hope my vision is that they would experience like I'm making a difference in the world, and that will in turn be something great for my family. And then with my husband Brian and my daughter Audrey, and then Travis and Taylor, my son and my daughter Taylor, you know, I believe that I continue to expand to be loving with them and, you know, a great mom, and at least I hope so. And when I'm not, that I'm humble enough to admit it. So I think just living the work that we live here and what's required to actually live in a life cycle does have an impact on my family. Now I know with Brian and Audrey, because we live together in the same house, that you know, there are times where it's like, wow, mom is really busy, or my wife has got like all these people that want her time. So we really have to work with each other and get clear with each other about making our little unit sacred as well. We definitely have to work on balance, of course, because we all love, like my husband's just as involved in this community as I am in other ways. He rocks out with them, does different things. And one of the things I didn't say was that one of the ways I see the biggest way it's affected our family is that we're having way more fun. We have fun. We're always on some adventure. And before crossing the Jordan, we weren't having that much fun. So fun, that's what's the biggest thing. And even that, like I'm even traveling more to see my family on the East Coast. And if you look at the way the world models addiction, you know, not too many people are thinking about getting off heroin as an adventure. And that's pretty cool. So when I show up at work, it's like, oh, I just never know how it's going to be. Always new people, and we're on an adventure for something, you know, that's life-giving. I see people I love, it's just as I'm sure all of us have had family members that have either died because of addiction, or, you know, like in my first marriage, you know, Eric, great man, and Travis and Taylor, beautiful children, and we weren't caught up in drugs and alcohol, but we definitely were caught up in an unhealthy pattern, you know, arguing and just all this toxic and negative energy, and that led to divorce. And so, you know, yeah, I've used drugs and things like that, and I decided real quickly, you know, after about 7 years of that in my younger years, like I don't want to be in that sort of cycle or pattern. But I didn't realize there was a much deeper pattern going on in me that needed to get interrupted, that was creating death. So yeah, I wasn't using drugs and alcohol, but I was, or abusing drugs and alcohol or whatever. But what ended up happening was I had all these other addictive attitudes and toxic thinking and toxic behaviors and old behaviors, things I'd learned in the environment, you know, other environments that were toxic or whatever. And so I started seeing this vision after going through the suffering of our first family, you know, not making it. And then being with my husband Brian, and then, you know, here addiction shows up again, and I'm just like, all right, something's got to happen here. And I knew addiction was not a disease. I'm like, I know that. So what's the gig? You know, what's the strategy here? Like, how can I personally stay out of that death cycle? How can I be, as a human being, that is a stand for life, and, you know, that we don't ever have to be caught off or into a cycle that leads to death and destruction and divorce and all that. So I'm just on a mission for that, and it's scary because, you know, I'm on the line here. So that's why it matters to me. I've felt that, I've suffered, I've created suffering for others, I've been in death cycles, I've been addicted, I've been an overeater, you know, I've been all that, and it's not that I'm perfect now, it's just I'm committed to being on a course that stands against those cycles. And I have a community of people that will say, hey, Sarah, you're off course. One of the things at Crossing the Jordan that we're standing in is like how to actually redesign a system so that when people go back into their families, into their system, that they know how to stand and know how to operate and know how to navigate with someone who's in toxicity or the pit, or however you want to call it, or the drift. Like how to be a stand for that so that they don't find themselves, you know, gone, lost, caught up in hatred or unforgiveness, or maybe they're just like, well, can't beat them, join them. You know, can't, you know, they're gonna eat potato chips, I'm gonna eat potato chips, right? You know, it could be that, down to that, like even that simple. They're drinking, I'm drinking. Why this all matters to me so much as well is like I've seen, so Taylor was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 10 years old, and Audrey has a heart condition that's significant. She doesn't have a valve to the main artery, and you know, even those two things, like as our families were going through that, and you know, learning how to live with diabetes and what to do, learning how to live with hospital visits and cardiologists, and we're still doing all that, right? That even with suffering and even with challenges, like I always say, like optimal is still possible. Like we can still engage in a way that is about life and that's life-giving. That's really like how I've decided to be in this with my girls, you know? And because when you have death like knocking at your door, you know, it's I believe we have to be strategic. We have to find like, how am I gonna be with this? How am I gonna be with death knocking at my door? Those are other reasons why this really matters to me, because I mean, I care about life, and when I see people, including myself, like inching towards death, I'm like, fight! You know, fight for life. There's good possibilities here, so many possibilities.
Last question. If you could say anything to someone right now that was feeling, you know, hopeless, what would that be?
Go find someone who has hope. If you're feeling hopeless, go find another human being on the planet that appears to have hope to you, and get real with them. Get raw with them. And if that person doesn't work, if that person doesn't spark something in you, then go find another person. And so, and be open. Be open to being hope-filled. You know, when you're hopeless, like, oh, yep, today I still feel hopeless. And like, be open. Like, hey, hope's possible. I know hope's possible because look at that person over there. They seem to be living in a bunch of hope, so it must be possible.
As a young girl, I started to pretty much feel unwanted and unloved. I had a pretty rough childhood at first. My birth parents were heavy drug addicts. My birth father was also schizophrenic, and so that made it even worse. I think they both self-medicated. I had a lot of siblings. We were abused and neglected. I just remember moving around a lot, lived in a lot of motels. After a while, the city or CPS must have caught on because I remember us all being separated, and we were all paired up and sent to different foster homes. Some of the foster homes were just as bad as being with my birth parents. Just as much abuse, and you know, I'd assume in the 80s, late 80s, they didn't screen the parents, the homes that you were going in like they do today, but I just moved around a lot, and it was really hard because as a young girl, I started to pretty much feel unwanted and unloved a lot. It's just, I guess, not really how it's supposed to be as a kid. I know that now I understand and I don't feel that way, but as a little girl, it's just really hard not understanding why nobody wants you. What ultimately led me down the path to darkness was, I'd just say overall, extremely low self-esteem. Starting from my childhood, it just built and built and got worse and worse. And so the drugs and the alcohol made me feel better about myself, gave me confidence that I never had, made me feel like somebody, I guess. I used a lot of different substances, pretty much anything that someone had or I could get. Towards the end, it got really bad. A lot of pain pills, and I smoked a lot of meth. It gave me confidence that I didn't have. It numbed a lot of stuff. I had 2 daughters and I was going through a lot of stuff, and I didn't know it at the time, but with like postpartum depression, being alone and having 2 daughters that were not really taken care of, the fathers weren't really around, and I had to do it all myself. And so smoking meth gives you endless amounts of energy, and so I felt like I could actually do everything myself, especially if I was high. Right before I came to Crossing the Jordan Academy, I was living in a horrible motel on Santa Rosa Avenue. My breaking point was I already had lost custody of my older daughter, and my youngest daughter was 2 at the time, and her dad had fallen asleep, and I had gone to the neighbor's hotel room to get high, and I'd come back and the door to the room was open, and my daughter had climbed out of her crib and walked up Santa Rosa Avenue in her diaper. And I just remember this feeling of someone took my kid, or she got out, she's gonna get hit by a car, and then an off-duty police officer had found her and pulled over and came to the closest place that she could have possibly come from. And I was outside knocking on doors frantically, and he's like, she's my daughter, that's my daughter, thank you. And he's like, oh, you can't have her back. I called the police, and I was sitting there waiting for the police to come and talk to me, and I just remember saying, please, don't let them take her from me. I just felt like the worst mother. Like I was gonna lose her forever. Or she could have been really hurt. And so I just remember saying, if I get through this, I'm gonna change my life. And Crossing the Jordan had a store up the street, and I knew it was a program too, and so I just went in there and I applied, and I got in the academy, and I just knew that I didn't want that to ever happen again. I don't believe that addiction is a disease. I believe that with faith in God and faith in yourself, that you can do anything to change your life. The moment I decided I was going to do something and not live like that anymore, I've not looked back. I'll never go back there. I chose to do something more and be something more than that whatever the darkness of using drugs or anything would ever take me. The losers that I'd hang around, I definitely will never choose to go back there. And I know it's not a disease at all. I have learned that I am worth so much more than I had thought for most of my life. I've learned that I'm loved and I can do anything that I set my mind to. I have learned the value of friendship. I've learned the value of a community to support you. I just have learned so much. Parenting skills, relationship skills, marital skills, just pretty much anything that has aided in who I'm becoming, and how I've changed from the past. I've learned so much from my work ethic from being here. I probably have tried every position in this company. I was a store manager, program manager. I worked at the warehouse. I've been on the donations truck. I have run the online store. I've done a little bit of everything. I can open a store and close a store. I can count out. I can balance, like, you know, numbers and things like that. But I've learned a lot, organizational skills especially. I calendar everything. I just currently love what I do so much, and I found what I was good at by trying all those things. I can't even think of everything that I've learned here. My relationship with my family and children now is beautiful. I see my older daughter Killian every weekend, except for if she's too busy, because teenagers are. My daughter Catalina is just amazing. She's with me constantly. Our son Tyler is great. He spends his vacations and things like that with us, and I'm married now. I've been for a while. My husband and I are just doing fantastic. He's been clean and sober just as long as I have. We go on vacations and we just are always on an adventure together. Our family is just so precious to me. Okay.
That's what I do at home when everyone's being too loud. I'm trying to sleep.
My fucking tribe is so important to me. My friends are the first people that I call. I have a group of the closest girlfriends that anybody could ever wish for. My husband calls them my chicken heads. I have a number 1 chicken head, I have a number 2 chicken head, and then there's Diffie. I need them as much as I need water or air. I'm getting emotional because it's they're just as important to me as my family is. They are my family. My group here is like what I've always wanted for a long time, especially not having a solid family for a long time as a young child. It's just important to me, especially because I just always wanted to belong somewhere or feel wanted somewhere, and I'm so wanted here. And they know my darkest secrets, and they don't judge me anyway. They don't care. They just love me. My future is so bright, I need fucking sunglasses. I am going to school. I'm getting my web development certificate and my business marketing certificate. I am going places. I will never stop working on myself, because when it comes to transformation, I believe there's room to change for the rest of your fucking life. I'm passionate about never putting a lid on my growth, my children's growth. I am just excited about what tomorrow brings. My name is Fallon Sealand, and this is my full disclosure.
Within days, I had walked into a bank, put the gun to a teller's head, and robbed the first bank. The sickest part of it all, that I don't want to even tell a soul, is that it was my daughter's first birthday. I actually had kind of a normal childhood. My parents were, I think, 13 and 14 when they met, and totally fell in love and had me at a really young age. So when you're growing up, you don't really think about the age of your parents, like that they might not have it all figured out. So in my eyes, I never measured up to my mother. She always wanted me to be prettier, thinner, smarter, faster, whatever, more. I could never remember a compliment ever. And I remember, I don't know, when I started to hit high school, like I was watching these kids around me, and I seemed to have my act together. I was good grades, I was active, I was ambitious, I wasn't that rebellious. I remember feeling like my mom was young, but never really understanding how young. I knew that from stories that she had been abused, but I didn't connect with what it felt like for her. She was just my mom. I knew by meeting her mom, very rare occasion, I could kind of see the cycle, but I didn't know what to call it. I just remember this like massive hole growing inside of me, and I never told a soul. I never told a soul, and I pretended like I was okay, like I was the MC at events, I had decent friends. I started to drink, I started to cheat, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I sensed that I was exceptional. So it was just this crazy conflict inside that I literally had no idea who to talk to about it. I felt like I would betray my family if I talked about anything. I come from an Irish Catholic family that doesn't talk about much of anything. I always laugh because my dad's Irish Catholic from New York and my mother was a Southern Baptist from Alabama. So here you go. Explains a lot. I actually remember later on in life that someone asked me how I took on the worst traits of my father and the worst traits of my mother. And that was a trip to hear. Like, how did I not take on their best? The cool thing is that I understand my parents now. I think none of us really understand our parents until we're parents. And the coolest thing is my dad, like, he never gave up on me. He brought my daughter to see me every other week, and my mother turned out to be this amazing woman. I get them now. They did a good job. So I knew that I was exceptional, yet I never felt skinny enough, pretty enough, or like enough. And not a soul knew, because I was still at the same time excelling in areas, you know? And so I didn't talk about it. I rebelled against it. I got mad about it, but I never like told a soul that I was dying, and I could feel it. And I felt like such a loser. And everybody would say, why? I mean, why would I do things? You know, I don't think anybody cared to ask why, actually. I just saw them see that I was starting to fall. And by all intents purposes, I had this picture perfect family. So, and they were doing their best, right? But you don't know that when you're a kid. And really what happened is that I remember believing that I was worthy enough to go to law school, but yet if I got in trouble for drinking one time, it seemed like it was the end of the world, and I was the biggest piece of crap on the planet for doing it. There wasn't dialogue around that it's common and that these things happen. Or I don't remember that dialogue happening because I chose a different story. When I started drinking, I, of course, like everybody else, took on another persona. And so the inhibitions went away, and so I was just happy. Like, I just felt like relief from the internal conflict. But the problem is that alcohol led to sleeping with someone, and unplanned pregnancy. It just started to unravel very quickly. I had never used drugs. I graduated from high school really never using any hardcore drugs ever. I was super late in any kind of rebellion. I had struggled to go to college. I had just started to just feel crazy inside because of the conflict. So to be like, if I'm gonna go there, if I'm not gonna give a shit, I'm just not gonna give a shit. I'm sort of an all or nothing. And that's when I met my abuser. And when I met him, I remember him saying things that I had been longing to hear my whole life. And I remember feeling over the top, madly crazy, just, this is the guy of my dreams, until 2 weeks in, I was thrown across the room and choked till I was unconscious. I was so sheltered that I had no idea I was sheltered. I mean, how do you know you're sheltered until you're exposed to real life? And no one talked about drugs. No one talked about abortion. No one talked about abuse or a psych. I literally thought I was the only woman in the world ever experiencing this. I had no connection to the world. And I know that some of my friends tried to help me, but it was not even that long till I was totally isolated. Actually, at that time, I hadn't used drugs. I was drinking, and it was within a short amount of time that it was a daily occurrence. And 20 years ago, the laws were not the same. Police were called, and then unless I testified, then nothing would happen unless they could see a visible mark. I actually remember O.J. Simpson chase and him physically beating me, banging my head into a wall as I was watching the white Bronco. Totally like, how is this even happening? I remember one time that I ran away and it took him 3 days to find me in Windsor at my friend's house, and he said he was going to kill everybody in there, and I believed him. And he bit a hole through my arm trying to kidnap me. You could see the teeth marks all the way to my bone. I think that was like one of the beginnings of the end for me. I had a daughter with him. I remember the day that she was laying, she was asleep on a bed, and she was days old, and he had beat me so bad. And just months before, I think it was a month before, I had days until she was gonna be due, and I had sat in a dark room with a loaded gun in my mouth, determining if I could hit 911 and she might survive in my womb. And then I brought her home from the hospital, and that night when he beat me for the first time since she was born, I had taken that gun and put it to his head. I remember hearing voices. I don't care what anybody thinks about that. Like, just myself, I don't know what it was, but I just had that I wasn't gonna kill him only because I was worried about her ears. He called my mom, and my mom came and peeled. It was a 45-minute ride, and she peeled each finger slowly off the revolver because she was afraid I was gonna do it. I can't say that I left forever. I think I ran 2 or 3 times, and he found me every time, and I could have gotten away, but I didn't think I could. And the day that the beginning of my criminal life was, I was about to be kicked out on the street with my daughter. He didn't care. And I had gone through a drive-through, and I just remember hearing that in my head that just rob a bunch of bakes and run. It was a crazy first thought, and I didn't even take it as reality, but I went home that day, and I remember he choked me so hard that I had to slide my baby down the side of my body just so that she didn't crash to the floor, and he didn't care. And then he dragged me into the living room and was kicking me, and I pretended to pass out like I had done that a couple times so that he would stop. And this time I watched him. I had one eye open. I could hear her crying in the other room, and he walked to the door, and he turned around, and he thought I was still passed out, and he kicked me in the gut 3 times, literally was dead that day. Within days, I had walked into a bank and put the gun to a teller's head and robbed the first bank. Later, the next week, I found the casino for the first time. I lost all that money. I started living this double life. I would be home being beat and then sneak away and live this fancy life. And then I would lose all the money. And then I'd go rob another bank. I was down to like, I don't know, so skinny. My mom and dad took my daughter from me. Then it was on. I remember that I'd taken a bunch of pills. I had done everything, trying to kill myself, and I didn't really want to die. And I certainly believed also that you wouldn't go to heaven. So I just said, I'm gonna get shot during a robbery, and that's how I'll go out. That my daughter would be better without me. When I talk about that woman, it's like an out-of-body experience. It's like I'm talking about somebody else. And I robbed 9 more banks. No baby. In fact, halfway through, he figured it out. There was my sketch of me on every newspaper around here. There was FBI wanting me. There was tons of media looking for this woman because it was so rare for a woman to do it by herself. I had taken on such an alternate personality that I had convinced myself that my story was true, that I had to do it. And so when I would take over a bank, I would tell the tellers that I was sorry, and I was. That there was a man outside making me do this, and in my mind and in my fantasy there was, just not the way I was saying it. The day I was arrested was the best day of my life. I'd like to say it was the birth of my daughter. I'd like to say a whole lot of other things, but it was one of the top days. And I remember thinking that. I think it was because I knew I was about to die. I was arrested because I was so strung out that a teller had recognized me, and she followed me out to the car because I was so gone that I didn't notice that it wasn't open yet, and my sketch had just come through the fax machine. My mom, so gone. I was looking at a life sentence. I had so much time over my head, and I fought my case, but I was tired and I didn't want to fight. I was happy for everyone to know the truth about who I really was. The time that I was sentenced was by pure miracle. I had an attorney and a team and a judge that was about to retire. Judge Woodruff, you saved my life. I remember him standing there, and I could hear my mom wailing in the background. It's funny how this hurts and not the abuse anymore. Because he looked at me and said, I think a very bad thing happened to a very good girl. And he gave me a chance. Because I had prayed pretty damn hard. And I went to prison, and I just remember during all these programs and halfway houses and counseling and institutes and damn bubble tests, psychology, and all these things. I just remember like getting to prison and looking at everyone so lost and alone, and just why? Like, why is this happening? I wanted to know why. I remember fighting it, you know? I'm gonna do this. I was still a little bit of a hard ass about it because I had to survive prison, right? I don't really look like I was gonna spend that much time in prison, whatever that means. And I remember finally, oh God, finally breaking and getting on my hands and knees, and I ran to my cell. I'd been there a year, and imagine all these years of waiting for sentencing, and was still so lost, and I ran with every ounce of my being and jumped to my knees and asked God for help. That I was done. And it's funny because it took a really long time for me to get fucking done. And in that moment right then, God said that you are going to help a lot of women. Right then, he gave me crossing the Jordan. Right in that moment. It sounds crazy, but right then, I knew what I was going to do. It was in 1998. It's a long time ago. And I just remember looking at all these women and men along the way, and everywhere I went, they told me I was a victim. I was like, how am I a victim? And I robbed 9 banks by myself. How am I sick and never gonna get away from this disease? Like everywhere, every counseling session, everything. I just somehow had this out-of-body experience through everything. Like, no, this is not the answer to getting better, you know? And I just never bought in. I got home. I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to transition. I went from high school to abuse to prison. I didn't have much in between. And then I got home and I got dumped off in the halfway house in the worst part of San Francisco. And I didn't know how to be free. And so I stumbled and I came home to a very angry daughter. I remember the day I said goodbye to her to go to prison. I mean, she was 2 years old, and oh my God, how did I do this to her? How did I rob 9 banks and leave my daughter? Like, what? And then I come home and she's so mad. She had every right to be mad. So I fell and I fell and I fell and I ran away from my calling, and I didn't think about crossing the Jordan, and I didn't think about anything but me again. And I did a little drugs, and I woke up one day and I remember hearing in my soul, when did I not believe in second chances? When did I make it up that if I fell, I had to fall forever? Like, when did I decide that? So I just got up and stopped. And not that long after, I met Michael. And I had shared this big dream with everybody when I came home, and no one wanted to hear it. No one cared. Michael came. And I had never had anybody believe in me like that. My mom had died the year before, and I began to understand her. I remembered thinking, wow, I really misunderstood you, woman. I just didn't know this whole time that you were just a kid and that you didn't know what you were doing because nobody taught you how to do it. And that she was so sweet. The day we said goodbye, we had to take her off life support, and she just told me just live more, baby, just live more. And I promised I'd never use drugs again, and I didn't. And I told her I was gonna do absolutely everything that I told her I was gonna do. Like everything. And I did. And that I came alive when I helped women. And that I knew that I could help women that felt like I did. And that I spoke their language. And that I knew how they felt. And that I knew how to help. And that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the things that were being taught to us were not helping. And I shared all that with Michael, and I remember the day he just said, let's do this. And here we are. I knew that my very pissed off kid would someday see that I was helping so many people because of her, and that she was worth fighting for. So what's my life like today? I'm a grandma. I know I don't look like it, but I'm a grandma. And oh, my daughter, Chelsea. We have the bumpiest roads, and she is my best friend today. My youngest are, I did it right with them, and my grandkids are getting the best of me. I learned how to live life. And on my journey, I saw that people just don't know how to live life. If you haven't been taught, how do you know? And we're just all broken because we just don't know. And there's no good or bad in it, and there's no really right or wrong. We just don't know. And unless you have somebody to come alongside of you and cheer you on and love you through it and not judge you through it, you just don't know. And some people die not knowing. I believe in being responsible for what happened. I'm not a victim. I did those horrible things to those people, and I paid my debt to society. I have a dream of being one of the only bank robbers to fully pay our debt. I may pay it every single month. I have a dream, big check to the bank. I think anything's possible. I think everything can come full circle, and that there's no limits, and if that you can have cheerleaders behind you. I have a lot of them. And anybody can do anything, because everything is possible.
I'm Dana Bryant, and this is my full disclosure.
So I've been to Susanville, San Quentin, Pelican Bay, CRC, CMC, Norco, which is the Hotel California, and Soledad prisons. Well, they have a reputation for being some of the hardest. And again, so when I first went to prison, I was 20, and again, I felt like I found a voice in there, and some old timers. They were in their 50s and 60s. They saw me. I walked on a weight pile. That's where, you know, the weights on the yard. I was a skinny 20-year-old kid, and they look, and I hear this word, Junior, Junior. And I didn't go by Junior, so I didn't answer, and I kept hearing it. Finally, I looked, I'm like, where's this noise coming from? These two big, huge, buff guys are waving me over, and they say, is this your first time in prison? I said, yeah. They said, you want to get big? I said, yeah. They said, work out with us. So I was 10 and a half, 11. I came home from school with my little sister. And I remember my mom being outside with her car, and the car was full of boxes. And I looked in the car and I said, "Hey Mom, what's in the car?" And she said, "Don't look in there, Michael, that's a surprise." And I'm like, okay, just, come home from school. All I wanted to do was eat and play. So I went into the house, and I was shocked to find the house empty. And I went into my bedroom, and I remember, I don't remember all that was missing, but I remember the TV that she bought me for my birthday, that was missing. And I started crying a little bit because just out of confusion, didn't understand what was going on. And I walked outside and she was gone. And had my sister and me. And we went to live with my dad, because my parents were split up before then. He'd drink a lot, work, yell, hit, do all that stuff. I mean, it wasn't totally terrible, but it wasn't the healthiest environment to be in either. Still to this day, never saw her again. She's dead now. I did get a letter about 5 years ago, saying that they found her dead. The FBI was actually looking for her right after she left, because she either robbed an armored car or was with the people that robbed an armored car and killed the driver. I mean, I'm not even ashamed of it now, but the thing is that, there's always that kid at school that's, that's dirty, that's unkept, or gets sent home with lice. That was me. I was actually that kid. I was quiet a lot, in my head, a lot. And, I wasn't thinking about traumas or how miserable my life was. I was actually just dreaming about what life could be at those times, or just thinking about something, far off, or what my life would be like, when I was growing up. I wasn't just I'm quiet because I'm abused. I was just in my head planning for this grandiose future. I remember that. In high school, I actually tried to play football because I wanted to be popular, but I don't know if I was comfortable in my own skin, or, I tried those conversations with kids. I just wasn't fitting in. And I thought, maybe if I play football, I'll fit in. And I wasn't good at that. And I still didn't fit in. It actually just made me feel a little bit more awkward. High school was just another stage in life. It wasn't this bad time. I wasn't even introduced to drugs in high school. But a lot of people look back on their high school years, and I hear them talking. They're like, "Oh, we did this." It wasn't all these fond memories. It was just, I went to school, and after school I went home, or I went and sat in a park, or climbed a tree, or did something. So actually, the drugs came when I was 17. So I had gotten out of high school legally. At the age of 17, and I remember my dad he got mad at me, and he says, "Well, you're almost at the age where I'm going to kick you out. What are you going to do for a living?" And I just wanted to drive truck. And I remember he swung at me, and I ducked, and he hit the microwave overhead oven. And I decided to move out at this time. I said, "You know what? I'm done." And I looked at him and I said, "I don't respect you." So I moved up north and got a job at a trucking company, washing trucks. I learned how to drive them and things like that. And I met some ladies that did drugs, and we tried it, and that changed everything. And I found that at that moment I was a lot more daring. It gave me the voice that I didn't have at the time. It gave me the courage that I didn't have. And it was a euphoric sensation of something at that time was missing. I was 20 when I first went to prison. And because of my love for big rigs and my daringness and stuff, I had gotten involved with a group of people that They didn't want the big rigs. They actually wanted the heavy equipment that the big rigs would carry. And at that time, I was drugged up, had no concept of consequences. Just figured, shoot, I'll go get an 18-wheeler and get you your equipment. And if there's a roadblock, I'll just blast through it. And that was my mentality. Just thank God there was never a roadblock for me to blast through, because I would have. So I've been to Susanville, San Quentin, Pelican Bay, CRC, CMC, Norco, which is the Hotel California, and Soledad prisons. Well, they have a reputation for being some of the hardest. And again, so when I first went to prison, I was 20, and again, I felt like I found a voice in there. And some old timers, they were in their 50s and 60s. They saw me. I walked on a weight pile. That's where, you know, the weights on the yard. I was a skinny 20-year-old kid, and they look, and I hear this word, Junior, Junior. And I didn't go by Junior, so I didn't answer, and I kept hearing it. Finally, I looked, I'm like, where's this noise coming from? These two big, huge, buff guys are waving me over, and they say, is this your first time in prison? I said, yeah. They said, you want to get big? I said, yeah. They said, work out with us. And I just hung out with those guys, and prison was it, especially Susanville. At the time, it had a reputation for being what was called gladiator school. And so there'd be riots on the yard. There were always racial riots. Not that individuals hated the other races, but you know, the big riots were always racial. And I remember I had opportunity to gain the respect of the people that at that time I admired. And I jumped into every riot I could find. And then so, you know, through those times they transfer you. The multiple prisons, I actually went back to prison 9 different times. So I just couldn't get it right. I've done a total, let's see here, with good time credits and things like that, the amount of years that I was actually locked up was 8 years and 8 months total. Well, you know, I'd get out of prison with an idea, and I'm like, okay, this is that idea. And in those ideas, I never planned for adversity. It was always like I was going to get out of prison, and the first day I was going to create a business, and money and champagne was going to fall from the skies, and I was just going to work. And when I was met with any kind of resistance, I had a case of the F-its, and I'd go back to the crank pipe, and that was like my go-to every single time something didn't work.
So talk about Seth and Michaela. What happened and why?
So I have these, I wanted them. You know, when people are in their early 20s, they hear about unplanned pregnancies, and they weren't unplanned. They were on purpose. And because my foundation for life wasn't right, and I had a misconception of success, I kept going back to prison, and I had these 2 children, Seth and Michaela, and I was married at the time, and I went to prison, and my wife at the time had kept playing with the drug game, and abandoned them at a babysitter's house. And they ended up getting adopted out while I was in prison. And you know, the stories that they heard about me, they actually grew up hating me. I am in a relationship with Seth today, but it's a surface relationship. Trying to go deep is like digging in rock. And Michaela, my daughter, I hear about her, and she's getting into these crazy relationships, and I think, man, I know psychologically that she's looking for dad, and I'm not there. You know, I'm not in those relationships that she's in, but she won't answer my calls or anything, but because of a memory that she thinks that she has of a loser dad.
Did you meet God in prison?
I did. A crazy way. You know, I tell people there's no wrong motive for opening the Bible. I had screwed over so many people. I'd burned every bridge that I saw, every bridge that I crossed. And I remember this guy, a minister, who came by my cell in San Quentin. I was on the 3rd tier Bayside in San Quentin. And he gave me a Bible, and I didn't want to talk with him. There were 2 things were happening. I didn't have anything else to read. And I thought that if I learned a little bit about the Christians, I could actually con them. I could build a Christian business and make everybody think that I was a Christian. So I was reading just to kill time. I wasn't searching for truth. And something happened while I was reading. I mean, not the first day. It was about 2 or 3 weeks, reading the Bible and going through, learning history in the Bible, learning about this guy Jesus. Wow. And then my course got altered, and I'd been to prison 5 times this time. So you're like, hey, you got saved, and you went back a bunch of times. I had this misconception of Christianity. And by, disclaimer, I believe everything that the Bible says today. But I was under the impression that just because I was a Christian, adversity wouldn't happen. And so when, again, I wasn't planning for adversity happened, back to the crankpipe. So when I met Dana, everything did change a little bit. Up before I had met Dana, it was about me having my dreams come true and me trying to create something for me and create an empire instead of a legacy. When I met Dana, I had failed so many times, and she had this youthful passion for life, and something shifted in my heart at that moment, and I realized that I could potentially find life by helping somebody else find theirs. And everything else I'd done had failed miserably, and I'm like, well, let's try something new. This lady has an amazing vision. Let's see if we can make her vision come true. If mine won't come true. And the crazy thing is that I found my purpose and my vision by helping her get hers. There were two instances that I would attribute to me waking up. One, I was already with Dana, and we had the children, and I had this feeling of impending doom because I still, I wasn't still living right yet. I was trying to help her and everything, but there were still a couple things off. And I remember I looked at the house, and I'm out on the street, and I kind of started crying, and I said, Lord, whatever you do, please don't take this family from me. And the other thing actually simultaneously that actually woke me up was the service component. And again, I'll just tell people, you can't go wrong in serving. That's actually where you find life, and you actually wake up is through the act of service. My life today, my marriage today is something bigger, better than I could have ever even imagined. So if I could have, I couldn't have even dreamed back then of something this glorious. So being a father, being a husband, my marriage today is actually, it's full of life, full of passion. I'm a grandfather. Wow. That's like one of the biggest blessings. I mean, being a father, being connected to your children, that's crazy cool. Crazy cool. If my children are, my relationship with each and every one of all 5 of the children, actually 4. I don't have a relationship with all 5 of them. I have a relationship with 4 of them. I have an individual relationship with each one of them. And the being a grandfather, giving them candy, and just being the Disneyland grandfather, because I mean, I can send them home full of candy. That's a blessing. That makes everything worth everything. So, I'd be in years, sitting in prison, studying, being in the grass or something like that, hearing the distant sound of an airplane, looking up and seeing that, and I'm in prison looking up at an airplane flying above, and I'm thinking to myself, now that's freedom. That is ultimate freedom, to actually be able to fly that plane wherever you want. And I started to go after some of those pictures that I had in my heart of freedom. Today I am a pilot. And the crazy thing is that last week I flew over San Quentin with some people, and I go, look, there's San Quentin right there. And I was the one flying the plane over the prison. And I thought, holy shit, this is real. So if you're like, thinking that your life has no tomorrow, or this is all your life is supposed to be, if you find out that you're having that question, think again. I mean, even your dark times, there are some lessons to be learned that will carry you far above the heavens, that'll give you something to give to somebody else, that you can look back and go, you know what? I know why I was at that point right then. So if that is you, don't give up. Tomorrow is really cool. I'm Michael Bryant, and this is my full disclosure.